Here's an example from my own experience. I have several friends that are all successful entrepreneurs who make money selling information, doing seminars, etc. And I've watched over the last few years as they've learned to deepen their relationships with their best customers and offer higher and higher end programs that, again, allow their customers to take advantage of their wisdom, all right? The things that are the most valuable secrets that they've learned. Some of the people that I know have gotten to the point where they're giving away so much great value to their customers, and they're making such high-end programs that they're actually multiplying how much business they're doing, sometimes 2x or 4x. I've watched friends go from just selling little small products to offering high-end coaching programs for multi-thousands of dollars to $10,000 coaching programs to $20,000 coaching programs. And even as far as one friend of mine is going to be launching a coaching program that's $100,000 a year to join. This is a perfect example of moving the free line, giving away massive quantities of value so that you can find the best customers, the ones that are the easiest to deal with, the ones that you like the most, the ones that are just in every possible way are the most profitable to work with, again, on both ends, and to work with them. So move the free line and move the depth line. All right, now let me share the third methodology with you. And this methodology is about how to name things. If you think about it, the name of a product or service is the ultimate in the kind of condensed concept. It's the smallest, most jam-packed, condensed idea of the product or service. It's the name. And I would say that naming is the area where business owners and marketers spend the least amount of time. The names of all the products and services out there are so bad, in fact, that I think that the names and the bad names that business owners give to their products and services actually cause the product or service to fail. A good name can not only cause the product to succeed, but can make it dominate its category for years or decades, or even for 100 years or more. One of my favorite names is the name Coca-Cola. And Coca-Cola has been considered for many years to be the most valuable brand name in the world. Why is Coca-Cola such a good name? And how has Coca-Cola kept a beverage that in tests doesn't taste as good as the competitor on top? How does that kind of thing happen? Well, if you take the name and you dissect it, and you really dig into it and use a little bit of knowledge of human psychology, maybe you can get some insight. Let me tell you about a part of the brain that you've probably never heard of. The part of the brain is called the phonological loop. This is something that I learned about from Roy Williams, and it's very interesting. I've done a lot of research on it since. The phonological loop is a part of the brain that takes whatever is coming in through the ears and it plays it over and over for a few seconds after you hear it. An example that I like to use is, have you ever been sitting with someone and talking to them, and then you say to them, "You're not listening to what I'm saying." And they say, "Yeah, I heard what you said." And you said, "Okay, well, what did I say?" And then they tell you the last 10 words, and it pisses you off because you know they weren't listening, but somehow they were able to remember the last 10 words. It's especially annoying when it's a kid, all right? Well, it's the phonological loop that's at play here. That part of their brain is playing back the last few seconds of what they heard, and even though they weren't listening, they can still dictate it to you as if they had been listening intently. Another thing that's interesting about the brain and sound, and this is something that I got from Jack Trout, one of the authors of Positioning, is that the mind learns by ear and not by sight. So most people design names that look good, not names that sound good. If the sound is friendly and attractive to the phonological loop, and it bounces around in there a little bit longer, it will be more memorable. So, how do you make something more tasty to the phonological loop? How do you make a sound that bounces around for longer than just the average couple of seconds? And I'd challenge you to ask, how do you create a sound that not only bounces around for a couple of seconds, but actually is addictive, that keeps coming up and playing on its own over and over in the head of the prospect like a song that you can't get out of your mind? Well, I can't tell you everything right now, we don't have the time, but I'd like to give you a few of the key elements to making a name memorable. One of those is a repetitive sound in the name, a repetitive sound. And this usually comes down to either alliteration, the same first sound, or rhyming, the same last sound. And if you dissect the name Coca-Cola, you'll find something very interesting. It has both alliteration and rhyme. Co, ca, cola. Coca-Cola. They're almost the same word, Coca and cola. There's only one letter difference. They sound the same. And when the mind hears Coca-Cola, that just bounces around and rattles in the brain over and over and over. How about another example? You remember when I held this up recently? What's this thing? Well, more importantly, what did this thing used to be called before it was a phone? You remember? It was called a Palm Pilot. Palm Pilot. It had alliteration and it was very memorable. Now, I don't own a company that's probably worth billions of dollars like Palm, so, you know, I can't speak to them too harshly, but I honestly believe that if they hadn't dropped the word pilot and called it just a Palm, that they'd probably have more market share and that these things would still be called Palm Pilots. What they did is they dropped half the name. Now it's just called a Palm, which isn't a very memorable sound, and a new competitor has come in and taken over. What's that? BlackBerry. BlackBerry. These things went from being called Palm Pilots to being called Blackberries. And I'm going to predict the future. Okay, I've got it. I think they're going to be called Blackberries for a long time. So if you want to create a good name, put sounds that are repetitive into the name. Some of my very favorite names, I'll just kind of rattle them off. Bed Bath & Beyond. Bed Bath & Beyond. When you hear that, you go, why do I keep remembering that? Well, it's because you hear the same sound over and over and over, alliteration, Bed Bath & Beyond. Here's one that's kind of a cute one, Dixie Chicks. You remember the first time you heard Dixie Chicks? You went, oh, that just sounds cool, it sounds interesting, but you didn't know why? Well, it's got that repetitive K sound, Dixie Chicks. Or how about this for a name? Do you know who Norma Jean Mortensen is? Well, how about Marilyn Monroe? Marilyn Monroe. Well, Marilyn Monroe was born Norma Jean Mortensen, but she had the good sense to change her name to something that was more memorable. Marilyn Monroe. How about another ingenious name? Marilyn Manson. I think that Marilyn Manson is one of the most ingenious names that I've ever heard. Why? Because it juxtaposed two names, Marilyn, which you immediately think Marilyn Monroe, and Manson, which you immediately think Charlie Manson. And it's got that alliteration and that kind of rhythm, Marilyn Manson, that just sticks in your brain. Okay? It creates its own category instantly. You can't forget it. All right? It's a name that's literally unforgettable. So there are many examples, Captain Crunch, M&M's. There are a million examples that you can go out there and find that use repetitive sounds to build a name that's unforgettable and that dominate their category. And I recommend that you do the same. So I haven't really had the opportunity to share this in a kind of public forum before, but think about the names of our other businesses. Okay? As an example, Double Your Dating. Double Your Dating. Think about the pen name that I use when I write Double Your Dating. David D'Angelo. David D'Angelo, Double Your Dating. Alliteration, repetitive sound, a rhythm that's hard to get out of your mind. Okay, so we follow these principles when we name things because we want to create names that are impossible to forget. So I gave you one or two components for creating a great name. There's actually a whole list of components for creating a great product name, and I hope you'll come to my Altitude training program so I can teach you all of them and so we can actually work on the names of the products and services that you're creating and on the name of your business to give it the highest probability of success. I hope you've gotten a lot of value out of some of these higher level marketing principles and methods and strategies that I've shared with you. As you can imagine, there are a lot of techniques that we also use. And I hope you'll come join me at our Altitude program so that I can share with you the step-by-step techniques and some of the tasty stuff, the test results and the headlines and all the specific things that we worked out that can maximize your response. And as you can imagine, we're also going to teach a lot of higher level principles, just like the ones you've learned, that will give you incredible advantages over the competition. Oh, by the way, if you haven't already, make sure and go to www.getaltitude.com. That's getaltitude.com and opt in so that you'll get the alerts when we release more of these high-value business training videos. I'll talk to you again soon.